by Sports. Joined by Greg Gaston, sideline reporter from Memphis Tigers football, and much more than that as well. We've had Greg on before. Always enjoy his insight. Greg, thank you for your time. What did the stadium renovation announcement, which I know they've been going back and forth on that, what did it mean, in your opinion, to Memphis athletics?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, guys. Thanks for having me back on. Look, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. I know for years and years people have been talking about an on-campus stadium, but just from the logistics, it wasn't possible. And they also looked at that possibility and came to the conclusion that from a cost-effective standpoint, it just wasn't going to work out. They were looking at Colorado State and the model from their stadium, which I think was, so they opened up in, I think, 2017 at a cost of about $240 million. And they said now, with all the prices skyrocketing for everything that it takes to build the stadium, they were looking at $400 million, and they just couldn't go down that path. But 150 to 200 million, although it will be tough in the fundraising, but they feel they'll get it done, is going to produce what will look like a brand new stadium from a fixture that has been here for a long time in Liberty Bowl Stadium. It's now called Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium. But, guys, this is going to be absolutely awesome, and it is something that they emphasize right from the get-go. The AD, Laird Beach, the new president, the mayor of Memphis, that they needed this to have any chance down the road to be able to move in if there's continued expansion into a power conference.
Greg, was there a sigh, did you sigh of relief? What did you, oh, thank God this finally got done? Because especially when it's the city of Memphis and the university trying to negotiate something, can never be that easy.
Yeah, no, it was a sigh of relief, but we knew we were going down that road. We knew there was going to be some sort of announcement coming up sometime in the spring or summer. The issue is still financially. The mayor was asked about, what will the city be giving, and he said, look, we don't have the answers right now. So they're going on faith. I hope it's not blind hope, but I think it's confidence. And I would imagine that they probably have some stuff in their back pocket that they just weren't willing to reveal during this press conference, because I don't think you take on an endeavor this costly without feeling pretty good about accomplishing it. So they have the dates. They feel that they're going to be ready to renovate starting at the end of the 2023 season, be ready to go for the 2025 season. So I think everybody across the board was on board, whether it was the mayor's office, whether it was the University of Memphis, everybody involved, knowing that this is the direction they needed to go with this stadium, is on the same page.
So, Greg, last year, 6-6 for the Tigers, had a lot of close games, and a lot of the games they lost were close games. The exception maybe of Houston was a little bit of not a beatdown, but that wasn't a one-score type of affair. UCF won by 3 scores, but outside of that, played pretty close with everybody. Bowl game got canceled in Hawaii, so it's been a little while for Memphis football to have padded up. How was spring football? What was kind of the theme so far this year?
Yes, spring football went really, really well, according to everybody I spoke with, and I was there for the spring game, and things looked good. They got some players in from the portal, as everybody does around the country nowadays, that they feel can contribute right away. They like their recruiting class. They now have a quarterback who's got a year under his belt. It was a true freshman last year and put up some huge numbers in Seth Hennigan. But I think if you look back at last year, it was a good season by no stretch of the imagination. Was it a great season? As you alluded to, they lost some real close games down the wire. They got to be able to finish those games. The bowl game was a disaster from the get-go. Going to Hawaii on paper looks great. When you go out there and the game's canceled, I know it was a disappointment. So who knows? But if they won that game, they end up over 500 for the season. But they can't afford to take a drop. They need to continue to push onwards and upwards. And Ryan Silverfield's done a nice job in replacing Mike Norvell, but they need to get back to 8 wins, and I think they have the team to certainly do that. It'll be a competitive conference, and then after this year, bon voyage for Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston.
Greg, how much does it still – we've discussed this with you back in the fall of last year when the Big 12 reacted to Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, and they're going to be a part of the conference maybe for another year, 2 or 3, and the other 4, they're coming. You Brigham Young as well. They're going to be a part of it as early as next summer. How much does that still sting Memphis that they're not a part of it?
Oh, it stings, guys. You can't even put a percentage on it, but I guarantee you from every Tiger fan, really every resident in Memphis, knowing where they should be, feeling where they should be, and knowing that they're not there, especially when you have the likes of Ole Miss an hour and change down the road, and you have the SEC that's embedded in our community, it really does hurt. Memphis knows that if they got to a Power 5 conference, that they certainly have the ability to prosper in those conferences, not only financially, but look, this is a recruiting ground for a lot of those SEC schools. Memphis produces a lot of talent, whether it be football or basketball. If you're part of a Power 5 conference, there's a lot of guys now that will decide to stay home and play at Memphis because they'll be playing those big-time opponents. They will play in big-time venues, and you just don't have that right now. The American has done a pretty nice job, but let's be honest, it pales in comparison to being part of the Power 5. So it has stung. It has stung for years. The announcement of the 3 from the American Conference, along with BYU going to the Big 12, really hurts. And there's just hope that there will be, and I know you guys talk about it all the time, about that further expansion and the rumors that maybe Memphis and Boise State will eventually be a part of the Big 12. Nobody knows that, and those guys in the power positions during this press conference did not allude to it specifically, the Big 12, but they did talk in generalizations about realignment and future movement in collegiate athletics, and they want to be in position to be able to be valuable to somebody who's looking at them. And they feel now with this $150 to $200 million renovation of the stadium, they have succeeded in every area. Academically, they are much better than where they once were. And everywhere else, they feel really confident that they could help out and be a major positive part of a new conference.
Don't kill me for asking this, but weren't they just granted? Were they granted R1 recently, or am I behind the curve there?
No, you're absolutely right. So they move into that position now. They have a new president, Dr. Bill Hargrave, who takes over from Dr. David Rudd, and Bill Hargrave comes from Auburn, so he knows what it's all about. He knows the importance of athletics, but he also put a big emphasis on the academics, which should be first and foremost, and they are now in that better position. So from an academic standpoint, they are in the best position they've ever been in.
Greg, was there, I mean, if you look at what UCF and Houston in particular did when the Big 12 did their kind of phony, we're going to think about expansion thing, several years ago, which was just a total farce that Texas and Oklahoma put the kibosh on, UCF and Houston particularly said, okay, well, what do we have to do institutionally to where if this is ever real, we can go do it? Memphis obviously didn't do that until now. Why didn't they do that then? Was it just an institutional thing of we don't need to do this because they're never going to take us anyway? What was the reasoning for not looking forward at least a few years ago?
No, I don't think it was that they doubted that this was a possibility. I just don't think they were in position at that point financially to do anything from a new stadium to even this type of overhaul of the stadium. They just weren't in that position. Academically, they weren't in the position that they are in now that we just talked about. So I just think it came down to where they felt pretty good about themselves as being an attractive school for possible expansion in the Big 12. And I don't think they looked at it like we're out of the mix here. But when the report came out and it was 12 finalists or whatever we heard, which was just ludicrous, that Memphis was not even on that list, I think a bolt of reality struck that, wow, we are behind the 8 ball and we need to do something because for the future, we really have to put ourselves in position to be a part of that Power 5 structure the way things are going.
So, Greg, there were a number of players that entered the transfer portal back in January. A lot of those guys still have not found a spot based on what I was reading a while ago. I know like Grant Gunnell, he wasn't long in the portal. He ends up at North Texas, and not surprising with what Seth Hennigan did there at quarterback. But what's kind of the feel at Memphis for the transfer portal? Is it as nerve-wracking and yet exciting as it is for most others? How do you kind of view it, and how does the fan base view it?
Well, I can tell you, I view it a little bit differently than the coaches do. And Ryan Silverfield knows that it keeps them up at night because now as a head coach, there's a whole new area, right? You have to recruit. You have to recruit high school. You have to recruit junior college. But now you have to look at the portal and you have to improve because teams use that now as a form of free agency. So as fans, I know that people around Memphis, and certainly I would imagine around the country, feel the same way, that you have to take that step and go out there and find players wherever you can to better yourself. And when you have players who have already proven themselves that are in the portal, it's a lot easier than getting the unknown commodity coming from high school and maybe even to a certain extent junior college. You're getting guys that have been there and have done that. So you can instantly make yourself a better team. You need a quarterback, go to the portal, find a quarterback. You need a linebacker, middle linebacker, go to the portal and find a middle linebacker. It's just a whole different world.
Greg, we appreciate it, man. The insight as well. I know that the stadium news is great. How long have you lived in Memphis?
I've been here. I moved here in 1995, so I've been here now 27 years.
Okay, so I like to do this because sometimes people just think, oh, that's the city, this is that. I tend, myself, I've always thought I like Memphis. Everyone has their pros and cons on cities. Sell Memphis right now, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm a Northeast guy. I'm from Atlantic City, New Jersey. People probably can hear my accent. I've been a Yankee for a long time, but now I call myself a Southerner because it's 27 years. I came to Memphis for television. I do play-by-play and radio. So I do kind of the big three in our medium, right? So I love the opportunity here in Memphis, but I decided to stay here. My kids grew up here. They weren't born here, but they grew up here. I had opportunities to go other places. I fell in love with the area because I love the people. There is nothing like the people in Memphis, the people in the South. It's just a different world from the rat race of the Northeast. And what I look at Memphis as is a small, big city, if you will. You have all the amenities that all the major cities have. Maybe not as much as you would in New York, Chicago, L.A., understandably, right? But you have all the things that you need to really enjoy life to its fullest, and the people just bring it over the top.
Thank you, man. We appreciate it. I hope we'll be in touch and having more conversations with you about the future.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
That's Greg Gaston, Memphis Sideline Reporter. Also, as he mentioned, very much entrenched in doing a lot of things with Memphis Tigers football and athletics as well.
I mean, he